Hi guys, and welcome to today's lesson on atomic structure and subatomic particles, which is part of the GCSE combined science as well as the GCSE chemistry specification, and is part of the atomic structure and the periodic table subsection. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at the structure of the atom, we're going to be looking at the subatomic particles and the mass and charge associated with those particles, followed by a practice exam question. So before we start, how small is an atom? Well, an atom is very small. They have a radius of about 0.1 nanometers, which again is highlighted in purple there because it's a key part of the specification. You also need to know that with regards to standard form, so that's 1 times 10 to the minus 10 meters. Well, let's have a look at the structure of the atom then. So an atom, first of all, has a nucleus in the center, and within the nucleus we find the protons and neutrons. Now, an easy way to remember this is a proton starts with a P and has a positive charge. So P for positive, P for proton. We also have neutrons, so N for neutron, N for no charge. So these are both found in the nucleus of an atom. Around the outside then we have shells, and on those shells we find electrons, which have a negative charge. So how small is the actual nucleus compared with the atom? So it's 1 over 10,000 of the atom. So that means it's 10,000 times smaller than the atom itself. And that's something that's highlighted there in purple because it is a key part of the specification. There's a little animation here just to show you what that may look like. So although the nucleus is very small, it makes up the entire mass or almost the entire mass of the atom itself. So which particles do you think are responsible? Well, what do we find inside the nucleus? We find protons and neutrons. So they are responsible for the majority of the mass of the atom itself. Just a brief recap there, then atoms are very small. The radius of an atom is 0.1 nanometers. The radius of the nucleus is 1 over 10,000 of the radius of the atom, so it's even smaller, and almost all the mass comes from the tiny nucleus, specifically the protons and neutrons. Let's have a look at these subatomic particles in a little bit more detail then. So we have protons, neutrons, and electrons. They're the subatomic particles. So protons, P for proton, P for positive, they have a charge of +1, and they also have a relative mass of 1. And again, just to reiterate what we said earlier, they're found inside the nucleus. Electrons have a negative charge of -1, and they have a very small, almost non-existent mass. Now in the exam you can write down 0, or you can just write down very small. And electrons are found in energy levels in shells around the nucleus. And finally, we have the neutron. So neutron, N for neutron, N for no charge. So they have 0 charge. They have a relative mass of 1, and again, they are found inside the nucleus. And just to summarize that, really, we've got the image that you've seen before, the diagram of the atomic structure, and we've got a little bit about each subatomic particle there with regards to their mass and charge. So this is key with regards to the specification. You need to know the mass, the relative mass, and the electrical charge of each of these subatomic particles. So guys, what we're going to do now is we're going to link what we've learned today to some exam questions. So what I'd like you to do here is pause the video and have a go at these practice exam questions. Right, welcome back then. So let's have a look at the answers. The first question, you've got a diagram of the atom and it's asking you to name, first of all, what is the name of the center of the atom? So the center of the atom, so this diagram does look slightly different than the one that I've shown you, which is a common thing they'll do in your exam. They'll show you the structure of the atom in slightly different ways, in slightly different contexts to try to confuse you. But if you remember, the center of the atom is the nucleus, which particle has a positive charge. So if you remember what we talked about earlier, P for proton, P for positive, +1 charge, that is the proton, and which has the smallest mass. So this is just some recall here. This is just something you have to remember. So the subatomic particle with the smallest mass is the electron. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the exam question, the mark scheme on the screen, and you can self-assess that work. Thank you for joining me today, guys. If you like the video, please like, comment, and subscribe for some more videos in the near future.